Hi guys, my name is Natalie Willes. I am the baby sleep trainer. Maybe you've heard of me before. If you follow my channel, you've probably watched some of my other videos, or maybe for some reason this is the first video that you've seen of me. I'm going to admit that this is the first time that I can remember going live, so I'm pretty crossing my fingers here that this is working. I'm going to be honest that we usually take some time. We film these videos, we set them up so that they come out every week. We've run out of content, and we are kind of switching things around here at Baby Sleep Trainer. So instead, I'm going to do these live videos, kind of vlogs. If you're here, if you want to ask me any kind of sleep questions, please go for it. I'm again going to admit that I don't think I've ever done any kind of chat on YouTube, so I'm watching where I think the questions are coming, but if you don't have any, if you're watching this later, of course you can always comment and I will respond. And if you are watching right now and you want to ask me any questions, go for it, because I'm also going to be able to answer them here. So what we're talking about today is true or false myths about sleep training. There are so many. To tell you a little bit about myself, and to kind of give you a sense of why I think I'm qualified to speak on this topic. So I have been a sleep coach for coming up on like 8 years now. And I have worked personally one-on-one as a one-on-one consultant with over 4,000 babies. Once I hit that number, I wrote a book. It's called Getting Your Baby to Sleep, the Baby Sleep Trainer Way. I also have online programs on my website so that families all over the world can use the Baby Sleep Trainer method and get hands-on help from me. I have now touched, or I should say Baby Sleep Trainer has touched in some way or another, whether it's one-on-one, through the books, through the online programs, over 10,000 babies around the world. So I know a lot about this subject, and I want to share some of the most common myths that I think trip people up and keep them from being really successful when it comes to sleep training. So the first myth is that sleep training involves hours and hours of crying. So let's back up a little bit here. If you're a woman and you're watching this and you have given birth biologically to this child, your brain is attuned to that child's cry. That means anytime you hear your baby cry, it hits the fear sort of spot in your brain. To give you even a little bit more thoughts about that, when we hear a smoke alarm, that pitch, that's not just a arbitrary sound. That is that's a certain pitch in order to trigger the same fear response, so that you'll wake up, start to pay attention, your heart will start to beat. Wow, your heart will start to beat. You will feel like sweaty armpits, sweaty hands, maybe a tight chest, right? That's the fear response, okay? That is the response that is triggered when your baby cries. It is extremely unpleasant, to put it mildly, right? I have 2 children of my own. I know how it feels when they cry. I've read this theory before. I didn't come up with this on my own, but it's really the one that makes the most sense to me of why is it so triggering for biologically, generally for one parent. Every so often you'll run into the other parent, whether they're a male partner or a female partner. Sometimes it'll be grandparents who don't like to hear babies cry, but typically the fear response is not triggered in anyone else like it is in the biological mother. And why? Why would nature push us towards that, right? The theory I subscribe to is that back in cavewoman and caveman days, if you had a baby that was crying, it alerted a predator to your location, and you are biologically driven to stop that crying at any cost, right? So you might have an otherwise logical thought, hey, I should really I know the baby's fine, they're crying for X, Y, or Z reason, this thing is they're struggling with, but they're fine, right? And instead we feel this fear response, and it is that fear response that gives us it almost makes the crying that people feel is associated with sleep training just completely insurmountable. Oh, hey Missy, how's it going? This is my beautiful client Missy with her little girl. I actually won't say her last name, or rather her first name, unless you say it's okay, but it is a beautiful name. I'm glad that you're here and tuning in, and I saw your question. So this response that we have to the crying is why a lot of families and a lot of women choose to avoid sleep training. And we believe that the crying that's associated with sleep training will last hours. And here is the actual truth. If you approach sleep training the appropriate way, there really generally is nowhere near as much crying as you fear there will be. I'm not going to lie to you and say that there aren't kids that have a harder time than others. Generally, ones who are pretty good at expressing how they feel are going to cry for maybe more than a child who's a little easier going, because they're telling you, hello, I'm frustrated. I don't want to be doing this and I'm upset. All sleep training is teaching a child, or allowing a child to learn how to go down flat on their back, alone, awake, on their back and fall asleep independently for naps and bedtime, so that when they wake up, as is normal, as they wake up overnight, they're able to access that skill set and put themselves back to sleep. There's a lot more that goes into sleep training. There are schedules, there's speedings, there's a million different things, right, that we could talk about. And actually, if you check out my other videos, you'll see me talk about all sorts of things in detail. But when it comes down to it, that's all it is. Well, if your baby is used to being rocked, fed, held, nursed, swaddled, whatever, and you take that away from them, right? Because if you nurse them to sleep at bedtime and naps, let's say they're going to want to be nursed as they wake up overnight. So if you have to take that away so that your child learns to fall asleep independently, which also they are 100% capable of doing, just like they're capable of digesting food, they are capable of falling asleep independently. Okay? So when you take away the thing they need to fall asleep, they're going to protest that with crying. But if you approach your sleep training the right way, it is going to greatly diminish the amount of crying that they do. However, if you approach it the wrong way, that's going to quintuple, right, the amount of crying that they do. That's why having a good method is really, really important. And the other thing I'm going to tell you, sleep training, I've got a outgoing, I don't know what she is, but she's about to start middle school. I've got my little guy who's in elementary school. I've been through a lot, parenting-wise, discipline-wise. Nothing is as counterintuitive as sleep training, right? So doing what you think you should do for sleep training is usually going to cause more tears. So if you're doing things the right way, there's usually way, way, way less crying. And it typically is, especially when you use the baby sleep trainer method. I have other videos too that you can check out that talk more about the baby sleep trainer method. When you use this method, the crying is really concentrated to mostly the first 48 hours. Okay, so let's go on to the next myth. What's the next myth? Does sleep training harm my baby in any way? No, it doesn't. This is, regardless of what anyone tells you, sleep training has never been shown to be harmful in the immediate, short term, or long term. And when I say sleep training, really what I'm talking about is the crying associated with sleep training. No one actually thinks their child learning how to sleep on their own and sleeping well is harmful for them, I don't think. Most people are concerned about the crying. It's scientifically irresponsible to say that any data shows that it is harmful. If you're familiar with the term extrapolate, that's what a lot of people are doing with data. They might see something and be like, well, then this means this, right? Well, this is the cortisol, so blah, 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 right? No. If you actually head to babysleeptrainer.com, I have a blog. It's a great blog. I've got a bunch of blog posts. One of them is on cortisol and cry it out. There's more information there. But no, the answer is no. And I'm going to remind you again, okay? I have made getting babies to sleep and helping their moms and their dads or other moms or rest of their families sleep, I have made this my life's work. I am very passionate about this. There are few people in the history of humanity that know more about this subject than I do because I've worked with so many families, okay? I am telling you, it does not harm your baby. It doesn't. It just doesn't. It's not harmful for them. There's also no evidence that it's harmful. I'm going to tell you another thing. You know what is harmful? What's really hard is when your baby is not sleeping. That is an epidemic, right? So mom does not sleep. Often dad or the other partner is not sleeping. Certainly baby's not sleeping. There's all sorts of things that, you only need to go without sleep for maybe 2 or 3 nights before you start to feel effects. However badly you feel when you are missing out on sleep, I can guarantee you that your child feels worse. They need more sleep than you do, and they need sleep more than you do, right? They're doing very important things while they're asleep. So I would say it's not that sleep training is harmful. It's that maybe if you don't address these issues that your child is having, that's where you're running into something that might be potentially more harmful. Whether it means you might run your car into a tree because you fell asleep, or maybe it means your baby's not thriving as much as they possibly could because they're not sleeping. But sleep training doesn't hurt anybody. Is sleep training something that needs to be done over and over again? Oh, this is my favorite. This is one of my favorite, and I kind of hate to use this word, but this is one of my favorite excuses that I hear when families are like, well, I don't really want to sleep train because I feel like I'm going to have to do it over and over again. That is not true. The only reason you ever have to sleep train again is if you've taught your child how to fall asleep independently for naps and bedtime, gotten them on an appropriate schedule, sleeping, eating, all of that, and then for some reason you make the decision that you need to begin to assist your child to sleep again. Maybe they've become ill or something of that nature or whatever it might be. But and you say, you know what, I need to help them fall asleep. The reality is that unless your pediatrician has told you otherwise, or you are using your best judgment and you think it is unsafe for your child to fall asleep independently, They don't lose the ability to fall asleep on their own just because something is going on. The alternative is that if you think something is wrong with your baby, you should immediately enter their room where they're sleeping, immediately pick them up, turn on the lights, check what's going on, address what's going on, whatever that might mean. Maybe that means you're sitting with them for an hour while the medication that your pediatrician said that you use to reduce their fever kicks in. Maybe you've given them a bath to help them be more comfortable. Maybe you've read books. Maybe you're just sitting and calming them down. When you've done everything you can do to help your child every way that you can, it's important that you allow them to fall back to sleep independently. They are capable. I always tell my families, when your child is sick or even suspect that they're sick, you and that child should be sleeping in the same room. So you let the baby fall asleep independently. As soon as they're asleep, you are back in that room, laying down next to them. You've been watching them on the monitor the whole time. You do not allow them to be alone, right? But you don't need to help them fall asleep. In most cases, there's going to be the rare case where the pediatrician says, or you deem it's necessary to say, hold your baby upright because they can't breathe otherwise. But it really is pretty few and far between the times when it's unsafe for them to fall asleep independently. So as long as you always let them fall asleep on their own, you won't have to train them again. But as soon as you choose to begin to assist them to sleep for any reason when you're at home, it's like pulling a shoelace. And all of a sudden that child wants that same assistance for naps and bedtime. And guess what? As they wake up overnight, since it's normal for us to wake up as we go through sleep cycles. Hi, Victoria. Here we go. There's an idea that parents just have to put up with bad sleep and keep on with their lives as normal. Sleep training is the best thing I've done for my son. Oh, and it's true. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really sincerely appreciate you sharing those thoughts. And that's really the truth, is that sleep training has gotten this like really bad rap, and it's unfounded. And what's crazy is pretty much everyone who's done it, stuck with it, and been successful is like, are you kidding me? This is life-changing. This is the best thing I've done. I'm going to give you this example. So my one of my children did kindergarten, and while they were in kindergarten, I knew even before they began that they maybe weren't quite ready. And a series of things occurred throughout the school year, and I decided that they needed to redo that grade, is essentially what it came down to. And that decision, and actually what happened is I moved them from the school they were in. I moved them to another school where I was under the impression that they were going to get more, focused support, and then basically do, first grade, and then be able to leave that school at some point and eventually go back, right? And what I discovered at the end of the year is that my child had progressed, but they had really just kind of redone what they should have done in kindergarten, and now kind of were up to speed, but at the end of kindergarten, not the end of first grade. So I had to make this decision for whether or not my child should go back to the school and restart, right? And I have to tell you that having them repeat a grade was one of the best things that the best decision I ever made for them. And the reason I decided to do it is because even though it felt kind of wrong for that, every single person I spoke to, both friends of mine whose children had been in the same situation, and everything I read online, not one person regretted that choice. And they said, all the things you think are going to happen, like all the social issues, no one cares. Really, nobody cares. And in fact, your child thrives so much. If you really need to do it, you should just do it. That's exactly what the sleep training experience is like. Like, if you really need to do it, if this is something that's, really, your family's really struggling, you need to do it. And listen to the people, like everyone who's done it generally are going to be very, very, very big fans of this. Anyways, I'm going to be doing these probably every week. We'll be coming up with different subjects to talk about. But again, check out, there's some links in the description below. Hopefully this went well. I'm glad you can hear me. And I will see you all next week. And let me figure out how to stop this live stream. I think it's right here. See you later.